Hello, I'm here to help my Python students study for their Unit 5 test. In the practice test that's currently available here in spring 2018, we have 10 true-false questions. Number one is true. When you have the range function used with a for loop, as you see down here where I'm waving my mouse, the third number, if it's provided, if there is a third number in the set of parentheses, which is optional, that is called the step amount. And it's there because it allows you to use a number other than the default value of 1 as your step amount. So the step amount here obviously is 2. That's a true answer. And the for loop, if there was a variable named I, the values of I would be 1, and then it would step 2 to go to 3, and then I would go to, oh no, in Python, I would not actually take on the value 5. It would stop at 3, and that would be the final value of I. The 5 is sort of the boundary, and even though 3 plus 2 is 5, the variable I would not go to 5 in this example. Anyway, that's unrelated to the answer to the question. The third value is called the step amount. Go read my lecture notes for vocabulary like the word step. It was explained in the lecture notes. Number 2, if you have a loop that's being used to accumulate the running total of a bunch of user inputs or some other set of numbers, we call that an accumulator statement when you have a line of code like this. So that actually is a true answer. And sometimes we would write out the accumulator statement like this: sum equals sum plus num. But you can shorten it using the plus equals operator in Python. And so that is definitely true. That is called, that is a line of code that you would typically see in a loop that has the job of accumulating a running total, where sum and num are two different variable names. Okay, number 3, that's true also. Number 3, I'm sorry, I didn't read it closely. Number 3 is false because the formula in this case that applies would be high minus low. That second number, the high number 10 minus 1. 10 minus 1 is obviously 9 times. So the answer is false. Number 4, we have to think this one out. There is no formula that I taught when you have a third optional number in the parentheses. When you have a step amount, let's just figure it out. How many times the loop would go around. The word iterate is an important vocabulary word, along with its noun form, iterations. Reread my lecture notes if you're not sure of the word step, accumulator, or iterate. Anyway, the variable I in this exercise 4 would begin at the low number here, 4. We would add 3, the step amount, to it at some point. It would go up to 7. And because when we add 3 the next time around the loop, on the next iteration, because it would hit 10, it would not actually go to 10. It would end at 7. So the loop would really just iterate one time. A pretty silly loop, but technically the answer to that exercise there in number 4 is actually true. I'm sorry, I miscounted. Because the first time around the for loop it's 4, the second time around the for loop I is 7, and it does go through the loop. It just doesn't go around the third time. It will not go around when it becomes, because it does not become 10. So 4 is true, 2 times. Number 5, It's simple when the range function is used in Python to where there's only one number in the parentheses. Because in a way, the low is 0. And if you had 0, 8, high minus low would be 8 minus 0. So yes, 8 times. When you have an 8 there, it just means that it loops 8 times. It iterates 8 times. Number 6, the answer to number 6 is false. That is not the correct way to equivalently type the code. As I explained up here, where num was a variable number rather than the number 1, you need sum on the left of the equals, and you would need the sum equals sum plus 1 in this case on the right of the equal symbol. This actually, I don't have room here, but just pretend that that's a plus 1. Sum equals sum plus 1 is the correct way to write it. This would just be an error, so therefore, even though this is legal, this is illegal, so they are not equivalent. The answer is false. Number 7 in the true-false section here, yes, true. The variable name that we use there is called the control variable. Sometimes we call it the loop variable as well. In this Python course, I always use the letter I as a variable name when writing for loops. You can use any variable name that you would like according to the rules of Python, but I use I as my control variable name. So more vocabulary that you should read my lecture notes if you're not sure what that meant. Number 8, that is true. True and false are called Boolean values. Go look them up, but George Boole, he led to a lot of the great computer science theory and application that we have today in the 21st century. I think he lived back in the 1800s. So we call true and false Boolean in honor of George Boole. Moving on, number 9. See the lecture notes anyway for a little bit more about George Boole. Number 9, more vocabulary that you need to know, flag variable, although we talked about it and used it on a number of worksheets. The worksheets where we used a flag variable, those worksheets involved while loops. And I forget what I used as an example of a flag variable. I might have had a variable named isDone. And isDone often is a good name for a flag variable. Not sum, not I, not num, but like something more descriptive of whether something's true or false. Because flag variables have to do with Boolean values, true and false. And they're used in indefinite while loops rather than for loops. You hardly ever see a flag variable like isDone being used in the context of a for loop. So number 9 is true. And number 10, a while loop, according to the lecture notes and anybody else that understands computer science, is not considered a definite loop. It's definitely false. A while loop usually hinges on a user inputting a bunch of numbers, and we don't know when the user will type in the magic number like -1 as a sentinel value to quit from the program. We don't know when the user is going to win the game by scoring points exactly. So often a while loop is used in a situation where we don't know when the end is coming. So that's called an indefinite loop. But on the other hand, a for loop is definite. You know exactly, definitely how many loop iterations a for loop goes around. In this case right here, 4 minus 1, 3 loop iterations. That's definite. In number 4, I do tell you to pretend that the user inputted a 9, 8, 2, and a -1. So you would be able to count the number of iterations in this indefinite while loop. But in the real world, it's not a made-up exercise on a test question. So you don't know exactly how many numbers are going to be squeezed in here until the user hits a -1. Okay, if you have any other questions about true falses, read the lecture notes and then consult me before the day of the test. Good luck on the real test. There are 20, maybe as many as 30 true-false questions, but all of this level of difficulty using a lot of vocabulary that is explained in our lecture notes, which look like this, at least as of spring of 2015. All these lecture notes printed out, it would be 13 pages. Think of it as your textbook, a chapter of your textbook here in this course called Computer Science, Games and Apps at Wyomissing Area High School. Have a great day. There probably will be another video available that explains the answers to the rest of this practice test.